on your hometown station, and we're speaking with Dr. Klein. She's Director of Palliative Care at Providence Holy Cross. Go to providence.org/Holy Cross. And we're talking about, we got a kind of a heavy topic, right? And we're talking a little bit, talking about death and how important it is for patients and families to discuss these topics. And we were talking during the break, and maybe you could expand a little bit about what happens if you don't have this discussion. Like I mean, you've probably dealt with it a lot.
Yes.
And so what are some of the things you see that happen if this discussion isn't had?
You know, unfortunately, it actually happens more often than not.
Yeah.
I believe the statistics go that only maybe 18% of Californians actually have an advance directive or a living will. And a lot of patients and a lot of people in general would like a good death, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the ideal, to pass away in your sleep or whatever. But unfortunately, that doesn't occur. And we're seeing that a lot of patients are needlessly suffering. And so we need to have these conversations much earlier on. Oftentimes when we have experiences where our patients and families haven't had discussions, we're doing everything possible, which we would do anyway, given the circumstances. That would include resuscitation. And what resuscitation is performing CPR, chest compressions on a patient to revive their heart, using machines such as ventilators to keep them breathing, and other life-sustaining treatments. And it's really things that need to be discussed in advance, because there's no time to make end-of-life decisions at the end of life. You have to have these conversations in advance. So I'll give you an example. I once had a patient who came in with a terrible stroke. And the family was grappling over the decision as to whether or not to place a feeding tube. And we said, well, why don't we go and look at his advance directive, look at his living will and see what he wrote, because they were having a difficult time and he couldn't make any decisions for himself. Fortunately, he had decided that he didn't want to have any artificial nutrition. So the family felt so reassured that they didn't have to make that decision. And we were just talking during the break, it is such a gift to have from your family member who is ailing, and not to have to make decisions that you may not be sure as to what's the right decision to make.
And yeah, we were talking about how you could feel guilty.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're making the right decision, but you don't know if that's what the person who's now deceased wanted. And so there's those things you need to worry about. And I mean, you're not going to let go of that anytime soon. So, so that is one way to prevent this from happening. But so what questions do we need to ask then? What questions do we need to discuss, I should say, about end of life care?
I think the important things is to decide, given the circumstances, whether or not how you would want to be cared for at the end of life. So, for instance, the first thing I always want to know is whether or not a patient would want to die at home, or would they not want to die at home, either in a nursing home or in the hospital setting. So we always try to accommodate that first. The second thing is, would they want to be resuscitated? Would they want every measure possible to keep them alive? What does it mean to have a quality life? So every person has to define quality for themselves. I can't define it for my patients. My sister can't define it for me. I have to define it for myself. But what is also important is having a person be your voice. So designating a surrogate decision maker to be your voice, so that they are honoring your decisions. That also is extremely important. So things like resuscitation, life-sustaining treatments such as ventilators, dialysis, artificial nutrition, and who is your surrogate decision maker. Those are the things that are the most basics when it comes to National Healthcare Decision Day.
And that would be difficult enough to talk
Those
about.
are huge
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah.
But again, I challenge every one of your listeners to have this conversation. And it just really, and the mantra goes, it starts with a conversation. At least if there's a conversation that is had, we can go with that.
And you could do it from the perspective of don't do it for yourself, do it for your family members.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately, it's not for. It is for you specifically, but like we said before, life goes on, and so you need to be thinking about your family first.
Absolutely.
And so, and I don't know this. I'm asking. I didn't even ask you this during the break. But can you guys at Providence help with this? Like, if a family has questions with this, they can give you guys a call and help with this
Absolutely.
situation.
We have a very we have extensive support measures in place to help our families with this.
Yeah, and the whole family can come by and sit down and figure all this, and it's hard stuff. It is tough stuff, but they can help you figure it out.
We do plan on having a table out tomorrow for National Healthcare Decision Day in the lobby at the hospital at Holy Cross, so anyone can stop by and pick up some materials and meet us and
get this all figured out.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We got one more segment, and we're going to talk some more. Dr. Keilani, she is the Director of Palliative Care at Providence Holy Cross. This is the Providence Holy Cross Hour on AM 1220 KHTS. And we're talking with Dr. Keilani. She's the Director of Palliative Care over at Providence Holy Cross. This is the Providence Holy Cross Hour. You can go to providence.org/Holy Cross and to find out more information about the awesome care that they have there. It's funny that the type of care we're talking about is palliative care is one thing. But I feel like the bedside manner is kind of a big emphasis at Providence, and it's one of the most important and probably overlooked things that patients think about.
Right.
They don't think about bedside manner. They just think everybody's going to be, doing it. They think that everybody's going to be doing it, but that's not necessarily true. But that's an emphasis. I know at Providence, you guys do take a lot of time to make sure that bedside manner is taken care of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it really starts with our amazing nursing care. The nurses, everyone thinks that the care starts with the doctor. I have to disagree. I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
I think it starts with the nurses. And our nurses are at the bedside for 12 hours straight. So they're seeing these patients, they're getting to know these patients. They know a lot more about these patients than the physicians do.
Yeah.
So the care really starts with the nurses. And at Holy Cross, I don't know if you're aware, but we are a magnet designated hospital. And what that means is that we have exceptional nursing care. So that is that is fairly rare in this country. I think there's only maybe less than 10% of hospitals in the whole country have this designation, and we have it at Holy Cross.
Fantastic.
So
that's good news.
we're oh my gosh. The nurses make the jobs easier for the physicians.
Yeah.
And that's really where the care counts.
Yeah.
But the physicians have amazing bedside manner, bedside care. And I want to be a patient there if I have to be hospitalized. And I make my family come to Holy Cross.
Good, as you should. We've been talking about palliative care. You're the Director of Palliative Care, and then we're also talking about end-of-life care. We were talking about some difficult conversations that people need to have. I wanted to ask you, I guess it sums it up in this question, but one, when do you think people should have this conversation? And then two, what advice would you give to people listening who are facing this, not necessarily, facing end-of-life care or helping a loved one face end-of-life type of situations?
Again, it goes back to having conversations. Conversations about what means quality of life to you and what is important to you in your life. And also what is important to you in the anticipation that you're unable to make your own decisions. Designating a surrogate decision maker is extremely important. But ultimately, it comes down to having the conversation with those around you, with anyone who will listen. It doesn't have to be your wife. It doesn't have to be your husband, but it could be your best friend. It could be your daughter. And I've had that experience with my own family. I've gotten to know my family well, and we've all made our directives known. So it's about having conversation, and it's about trying to understand where each individual is coming from and what's important to them.
And have it with the whole family. Get everybody involved, not just your wife, but your
Right.
kids as well, and make sure that they're a part of it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just so they know. And so when should we have this conversation?
Now.
Okay, yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, you should leave right
Yesterday.
now. Yeah. And I know we joke you should have had it yesterday, but
Yes.
it really is an important thing because for your family members, if you have that conversation, we were talking during the break, you can just enjoy whoever's facing that end of life stuff. You can just enjoy the time you have with them rather than worry about the
Exactly.
decisions that need to be made.
Exactly. And that makes a quality experience for those loved ones around you.
Yeah. Any other? I feel like we went through a wide variety of stuff. Is there anything else you want to make sure you mention? We only got like 2 minutes here, but I do thank you for stopping by.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And please come by our table tomorrow for National Healthcare Decision Day in the lobby at Holy Cross.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you can find out more information by go to providence.org/Holy Cross. Dr. Keelani's been hanging out with us for the Providence Healthcare Hour. She's the director of palliative care at Providence Holy Cross, and she hasn't left the state of California, I don't think ever. Right? Right? You're just a lifer. You started at Providence, and you're still there.
Yep.
So, right? Yeah. You're just a lifer. Yeah. I think it was fun talking to you. I appreciate you stopping by. And it's always fun to have you guys talk about how awesome Providence is, because I love that place. So
Yeah.
awesome.